Gukesh Ding, round 8. No engines were harmed in the making of this video. Okay, c4, e5, knight c3, bishop b4. This is an ancient line, and Gukesh has some of his own ideas in it. So against the English, you can do a variety of things. If I'm on Gukesh's team, I want him to really play something more mainline. And this game is an example of it. I want him to play either the London or his old friend, the Catalan. Here, we're giving Black a variety of ways to throw whatever fancy, new, weird move the Indians have at us, right? Okay, knight d5, bishop e7, knight f3, d6, g3, c6. Take my bishop, please. Knight e7. Now, obviously now, white has an extra bishop, this unopposed bishop. And how good or bad that bishop is going to be a big feature of the rest of the game. Now, queen takes e7 makes more, it's a little bit more plausible to me, but Gukesh has his own ideas. Knight e7, bishop g2, and now the very ambitious f6. Novelty. Okay, f6 is very ambitious because we're not developing, and we're saying, I want to crush you in the center here, right? Now, at this point, Ding is going to, first of all, he's in a tank. He's in a tank for 14 minutes. And he's going to slide into a position that is lost by move 15. And it's going to be incremental. There's no like blunder that's going to be where he's lost. It's just going to be incrementally, he's going to get worse and worse. So the first move I don't really like is castles because Ding is about to play, Gukesh is about to play bishop e6 to tempo the pawn on c4. So what I would like to see is d4 from white immediately, making Gukesh declare his intentions. And if e4 will get actually an interesting French structure, white will be playing the French. Okay, here we go. Castles, bishop e6, b3. Now, you got to defend the pawn now because of bishop e6. It's an important tempo. And yes, you get your bishop on c1 out, but you've also blocked your queen on d1. d5 immediately. Gukesh playing this very quickly. Bishop a3. Now, we had bishop a3, a funny bishop a3 in round 2, I believe. And this whole thing is a little bit smelling like his second rapport, right? Okay. So, because that dude likes to play some weird things. And is it helping Ding? Well, at least not in an objective way. So, castles. And now white could do some things, rook c1. And then we liked black's move, a5. Certainly there were other moves as well. The point is that this knight would really like to come to the c6 square. So if you ever took, I would just be so happy because then my knight would get this square. Also here, it doesn't really know where to go yet. With a5, black says, oh, you know what? My rook is conceivably developed on the A line. And if it's developed, then the knight on b8 it can stay there. There's not as big of a hurry for the guy to get out of the box. Okay. Big moment for Ding because Ding has to come up with a plan. He chooses knight e1. And it's hard to say exactly what he should do. In hindsight, I feel he should really consider a move like d3 and knight d2, really just trying to hold the position. Knight e1 has a lot of ideas. Maybe I'm going to d3 with the knight. Maybe I'm playing f4, right? Maybe I'm playing d4 and then I'm just getting out of the way of e4. All of these things are on the table for white. Black plays rook e8. We thought rook e8 would have also been a fine candidate move on the last move instead of a5. And Ding now makes a move that we find suspicious. So maybe d4, some move like that. He plays f4. And on the surface, it seems like maybe this is okay because you're carving some dark squares out if I push, which I think would be poor. And if you let me take, then this rook will be active on the f file. But very simple move from Gukic, bam, ef4. And rook f4 is the intention, bam, boom. And here it was very clear to us that black is now significantly better. So let's move it on down. I think I had it at about negative 0.8. I really disliked this position. Maybe it's even worse than negative 0.8. But the point is, from castles on move 8 to here, we've seen a consistent slide. Notice now that the rook on e8 is now very strong, right? And the bishops aren't really doing anything. This guy's stuck. This guy isn't fixed. This rook we're going to have to talk about. And this guy, bishop a3, if he didn't take, which maybe he was thinking about it just to try to get out of dodge, he's going to get ghosted. And that we get ghosted right now with knight g6. And it's a very unpleasant position now. Already, move 15. Move 15. Oh, God, it's bad. It's so bad. So Ding comes up with a very ambitious attempt to hold things together now with rook e4. Okay. The issue is, if you go back, let's just put it here for a second, knight e5, I'm hitting this coconut. And not only that, but when I force you to play d3, notice this knight no longer has this square. And then on knight g4 or queen b6 first or something, it's not what you wanted. It's just not what you wanted. Queen d4 probably even better first, then knight g4, not what we wanted. Okay, so rook e4. Now, it's well known that my Mexican friend said that rooks in the center are, well, mierda, he said. Mierda was the word that he used. And here too, this rook, he's going to get poked all around. They just don't belong in the center of the board. That's not where they belong. And here, black thought for a while and made a fine move. And the interesting thing here, first of all, just to note, because we're going to have this plan on the next move too, is f5, f4 looks real spicy. You know, f5, I don't know, rook e3, I guess is forced, f4. Black's doing great. Black is simply doing great. Now, black plays knight a6, and what's interesting about this move is that it seems like we're allowing what white's intention all along was, namely that this knight d3 would happen. And the point would be that the pawn on d3, but let me put it differently, by keeping the rook on e4, I keep the knight away from the d3 square. However, there's a variety of things to be afraid of on knight d3. Queen b6 looked scary, for example. So Ding thinks forever and plays knight c2. And this is very frisky. The hope is that the knight will do something on d4, and that if we need to, we'll play d3, and we'll try to hold our business together in the center. It looks very, very suspicious. So here already I was dropping it to like 1.5. Okay, let me show the time graph here. Something has really been a pattern with our time situation is that Ding has gotten into hectic time trouble very early on. You see there, he's just tanking before move 20, leaving himself with very little. And then he's able to make several moves in a row, little time, and plays them well. Okay. So in this position, we thought queen c7 was a good move, certainly maintained his advantage, but we definitely felt that f5 was hard to meet, and queen b6 also very hard to meet. And they're a little bit interchangeable, you know, very painful. So for example, here, 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 and if rook b1, we'll play here. Everything's falling apart for white. We didn't understand. Also, the immediate queen b6 also presents problems. You don't really want to play c5 because you're giving me all this stuff and blocking your bishop, right? And so next move, I'll play f5. Also looks very strong. So there was a little bit of regret from myself and David about this eval, about queen c7, and we reduced it some. We still thought black was doing great after queen c7. Okay, here we go. Knight d4, bishop f7. What is black saying? He's saying, well, you know what? I have this E line, your rook on c1 isn't doing much, my pieces are all better, and your bishops are chumps. But it is allowing white the chance to trade rooks. And kind of amazingly, Ding is like, it's okay, I can live with that. And so he doesn't want to take on e8 because that would develop our rook on a8. Okay, knight e5 looked like a bad news, okay? Ding again finds knight f3. I believe that was also game 2 when he found knight f3 getting out of the way of the b6, c5 thing. But okay, fine, we'll just move out of the way. No problemo. But you know what? We also felt, we didn't understand this. Just to be clear, we thought bishop g6 was, we thought that was power. We thought that that was some power. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. We didn't understand that. I still think black is better here, but bishop g6, that was a question. That was a question. So you see, from my human perspective, I don't always get it. You know, you imagine like bishop g6, I don't know, we were talking about rook f4. This is horrendo. What a terrible position. And now whenever you take, I'm going to whack you and then do something like that. You know, I got queen b6 here, knight b4, all kinds of nice things. Okay, black is not relinquishing his advantage, though, with knight d7. Okay, rook b1. And what's funny about this position is, like, you look at it optically and you're like, okay, black is better. We got the e file and stuff. But the bishop on f7 is a problem, okay? And so Gukesh has an amazing idea here that maybe if Ding had spotted it, he might have played a clever move like king f1. And unless you see black's next idea, you're not going to come up with king f1. But king f1, obviously, you know, black is still doing great. Let's look at what happened. Rook b1, b5 exclam. Such a beautiful move. And it's positionally based in that we really want to free this bishop. Now, first we're going to see the tactic is that if here, this is the idea, and then we're going to recapture. Okay, b5. I would rather really not want to take that pawn. If there's a way for me to do it, I'd rather do this. And I would still say it's like negative 0.8 or something around there. It's not completely crispy critters. My sense, though, after cb5, when you open this guy, is that it's done. Okay, so let's take a look. Queen b6, king f1, cb5, and yeah, I'm going to go full crispy critter here, like 1.9, 1.8, something like that. And the point is that the knight on f3 is still a chump. The bishop on g2 is not working. And I have a queenside majority and the victim. And the victim. In the analysis, Proust wanted to do something nasty like that, as is like, you know, that's not fun. So Ding takes the active approach. Now, at this point, he's playing fast. He doesn't have any time. And maybe this is the way he should be playing. He's playing quickly. Now, bishop b2, bishop a2 looks correct. Now, by the way, if you don't play bishop a2, you play something like b4. Will black be significantly better? Yes, significantly better. So you don't have to take on a2. We still thought it was correct. Bishop d4. And now here's a move that we felt was a mistake, and it was played instantly. Gukesh has plenty of time here. And actually, I take it back. It wasn't quite instant. It wasn't quite instant. But you could tell he regretted it. So we felt, okay, let's imagine, first of all, what's going on here. We need to keep contact with these pawns. If we move the queen, let's say to b8, then there's rook a1, and he picks up our coconut. We don't want him to pick up our coconut. So we don't have any great squares for the queen, so we must block with a knight. We felt that this knight needed to go, and the reason was pretty clear quickly, was that we're going to need to play our rook here, and our bishop will return. And when that happens, our rook will be protected. Our rook will be protected. Further, when we play knight a5, not only is this diagonal closed, but the the knight on d7, it's not really clear it's doing all that much. Okay. So we're going to guess that Gukesh missed something in the calculations here. Rook c1, because for us, by the way, this was completely winning. And then once knight ac5 happens, it's unclear. David was thinking maybe white was, well, at a certain point later that white was better. We're going to talk about that in a second. So here we go. Rook c1. It's getting spicy, my friends. Bishop b3. Now, this is the advantage of playing knight ac5 over knight dc5, in that I can't take this thing because my bishop can take this guy back when I need to. Okay. Whew. Yeah. Now, actually, let me, curiosity, morbid curiosity. I suppose I might get away with that here too. I suppose I could get away with that as well, because when I play queen takes, knight takes, I got that. Now, unnecessary though, because bishop e6 seems to do also the job. All right, knight ac5, rook c1. I got a firestorm behind me. This is what Ding was feeling during the game. He was like, medical alert, boss, medical alert. So bishop b3, queen e1. Now, what's going on? The queen, although kicked, is able to intensify her pin on f2. And in this position, Gukesh must have felt, hey, I gotta be okay. First point is knight d3 doesn't do it. Looks fun and fancy, but then queen c3, and then all of our coconuts are hanging, right? So bishop e6, queen f2, and all of a sudden, life is kind of hard. Simple move, bishop e3. d4 is on the table. Notice, if the knights were different, we would have, this knight were over here, excuse me, on a6, we'd have no problem at all because our rook would be defended. We could just move our queen somewhere. But now we move the queen, d4 happens. Oh no. Oh, and at this point, well, I'll show you where he was really losing his mind. So rook c7, now a nice move with knight d4. We could have played bishop f4. We could have. Ding could have played bishop f4. And after knight e5, we felt that black was better in this position. Okay, so knight d4 happens. Bishop f7, and then as predicted, knight c6. Boom, 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 boom. And now we have a really interesting question. How to evaluate this position? Now, David felt that white was winning here, okay? And I was still uncertain. So I still leave it at 0, h6. And the point is this. And this is a very instructive position, I feel, for myself. I've seen this in some other games too. When you're down in material, it helps that when you have opposite color bishops, okay? And we're gonna see that in this game too. The point is, we have the ability to control the light squares, and white does not, okay? And this goes for both attack and defense. So if you think about white, yes, he's got the rook, and the rook is cool, but how can he attack the king? It's not going to be so easy. We've got the light squares over here, okay? By the way, Gukesh was properly losing his mind. He had the first time a look on his face. I was like, he's crying inside. I get it. We've all been there. Just a terrible moment to have that wonderful position, and now you're here, and maybe you're not lost. Maybe David's wrong, but it's no longer pleasant for a peasant. Okay, king e1. In principle, we thought this was a great move. Put the king on the dark squares where you control the business. Okay, here we go. b4. And now we felt that king d2 was correctamundo here. Instead, we have queen d4. And the reason this seems suspicious is that knight e5 is now a thing. Now again, black is able to get drama against the light squares. And oh man, yeah, we have ourselves some real stuff going on here. Whoo! Okay, so we had a long variation with queen d8, king, queen, and there's all kinds of fancy stuff happening here. If my memory serves, it was check to the miserable king, check to the miserable king, check to the miserable king, and check to the miserable king, and bishop 8 here will lead to mate. King e1, I at least have a perpetual, and on king e3, the problem is your king can't escape without you losing Mr. Rook. Oh no! Oh no! So that was maybe something, we're in time pressure here, that Ding didn't appreciate. Now he plays king d2. And now, my friends, this is going to go down in the annals of chess history. As you recall, in the London game, where Ding got an incredible advantage from the opening, every GM in their right mind thought he should be pressing, he tries to force a draw. Now, maybe it is equal here. Maybe it is complicated. But here, it's Ding says, all right, bud, I'll give you a draw. Well, you can have a draw, bud. And then, like I said, this will go in the annals of chess history. Gukesh says no. He says no, dude. He says, no, I want to fight. Now, let me just point this out. Like my co-commentator, David Bruce, famous for declining draws, famous for being against the culture of draws, anybody drawing. I once drew a game and he took me out in print. He was like, Jesse's a chump. This is a chump. I was black and I agreed to a draw. I thought I was doing fine. I thought I did fine. And he was like, he's a chump. He should be playing. Well, here, even David was like, no, Gukesh, what are you doing? You can't do this to me, boss. Here we go. Rook c2, queen e6. Now, the first impression of this is that we've really hurt ourselves badly. By the way, I would love to watch the press conference before I do this thing, but I can't because they show the eval bar. And I just really, once I see the eval bar, it'll completely change the human appreciation of the position. For them too, unfortunately. They don't get to think about it after the game with their own minds. They instantly get shot through with the engine. Okay, so the big question here is, first of all, interesting, white can play queen d8 and take the pawn. But the question kind of also is, well, if we don't take the pawn, what do we feel about the evaluation of the position? David felt like, oh, white should still be better. I wasn't so sure if you don't take that pawn, right? I wasn't so sure at all. I feel like with the opposite color, my chances to invade, all the dirty tricks, I have some stuff going on. So the game saw queen d8, snip, b3. And there's all kinds of fancy stuff going on with rook b2. And we felt rook c1 was actually better. One of the reasons is when I play queen d5, I don't want to have to worry about knight c4. Okay, now we looked at this position. Queen d5 was played, and amazingly, we saw to the end of the game here. We saw what was going to happen. So, if you were truly insane, maybe you would play bishop h5 here. When we looked at it a little bit, that would be an insane attempt to continue the game. But, we were already like, Gukesh is insane. The guy's insane. Okay, so then we saw queen d5, queen g2, and now Ding can basically force the end of the game with queen e4, and he does it. perhaps a lack of ambition. Boom, 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 nod of the head, and then they agreed to a draw. Okay, a quick note I want to say about this game. Possibly Gukesh is going to become world champion. And one of the things that I was reflecting on as the game was happening is a thing that maybe now seems obvious, but was not when it was first happening, was Carlsen changed the way chess was played by continuing to play out what older GMs would have considered drawn positions. He just kept playing. He's like, no, let's see. And some of those games he won. He was very good at those end games, of course, as well. That changed the way people approach end games. Now, I think we're seeing an interesting shift. So first of all, if you're a world champion, you kind of dictate the way other people play. They might not even know it. Like Carlsen was playing those slow Rui Lopez's. People that hadn't even studied Carlsen's game started playing it too. It just filters on down, the culture from the top. So now what we're seeing is, in my pregame, I was saying to myself, pre-match, I was saying, look, one of the interesting things about Gukesh is he can play these openings and he'll get weird positions because he's not afraid of being worse. But we're seeing it extends to the rest of the game too. Dude doesn't care. He doesn't care if he's worse. He will deny the repetition and he will just keep playing the queen h4 move. Oh my gosh, in the other game, in the London game, are you out of your mind? You were clearly worse there. There it was clearly worse. Here, at first, I thought he was clearly worse. And then in my mind, I rationalized it. Maybe he's still okay. But still, he would have taken the draw. So, fascinating. I think great for the culture of the game. We're moving on. And what I want to say about the next round is this is the second game in a row where Ding has been pushed to a 5-hour game. And it's not pleasant for a peasant. A lot of nervous tension. And even though Gukesh hasn't won these games and definitely was winning in both, and I'm sure it was disappointing, the fatigue and the energy of the match is definitely on Gukesh's side. So big game tomorrow. Gukesh is going to be white. My feeling is he's going to win a game and this thing is going to blow wide open. Stay tuned.